tell us your name?
We're going to go into some specific stories here. Some of them I have on the list. Like I said, ETs did not get me stories. They were supposed to get me stories. so I had to pick some of them. Dagny got me one. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But one that was my favorite and was actually the basis, not the basis, but it was what got me started researching the paranormal and history in general in Mobile was the Boynton Oak in Mobile. Louis, tell us that one real quick, because I've told it thousands of times. If you remember,
the story dates back to the early 19th century when there was a gentleman who he and a friend were seen walking down a local street, and his friend turned up murdered.
right?
And they ended up arresting the gentleman he was seen with and charging him with the murder. And he was condemned to death and executed in a tree that is now a part of that is now in. No, he was executed near the Church Street Cemetery,
Right.
and he was buried in the cemetery. But before his death, he said, "If you bury an acorn in my hand, if I am innocent, and a tree will grow from that acorn." And in fact, a tree did grow out of his grave. And according to Mrs. Wyndham, people still hear whispers around that tree, whispers of "I'm innocent." And so it seems that man's spirit is still kind of hanging around.
Yeah, that's what they say. Now, what you're looking at now is an actual picture from a book called The Tree Being the Strange Case of Charles R.S. Boynton. It was published around 1901, 1902, somewhere in there. And this shows an actual picture of the oak tree that sprang up from his grave.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he was hung somewhere, some other place. I've never found where he was hung. But there's been some controversy of late as to which oak tree is his. And I'll explain why. Because, excuse me, he couldn't be buried in the cemetery because he was a convicted murderer. So they buried him just outside of the cemetery walls, and in the what they call the gatekeeper's garden. And you can actually go there. And I think you mentioned it in your book. It's on Bayou Street.
Yes.
And there's a big church right across the road from it. But luckily, they've not developed that little area. And there are 3 possible oak trees in that general location. Someone went in there and they put up signs around it, and they're like a protected oak tree or something like that. And there's a sign there, and then several posts in the ground protecting the tree. But as we usually ended our tours right there, and we would talk about the Boynton Oak, and we would talk about the 3 different oak trees. There were only 3. Now, this is the actual only evidence we have of the supposed oak tree that sprang up from his grave is this etching. It was a copper etching from the book. Last I checked, there was only one of these books available to buy. There's two in the history and genealogy section at the library that you can't buy, you can't check out. You can only sit there and read them. But this is from that book. And if you'll look, the wall is right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
The tree itself has three main trunks.
Okay.
And the headstone has been lost to time. Well, again, this is just me. As we would go in there and we would end with an investigation there, and we found some interesting things. As a matter of fact, I was telling the story one night. We had our little ghost apps running, and as I was telling the story, I screwed up and I said the name of, because there was an unrequited love. I mean, Lewis gave you the basics of it, but this is a big story with a lot more details. Mm-hmm. And there was, he loved her, but she loved him, and, you know, and all this kind of, I mean, it was weird. I mean, it was one of those triangles. And I said the woman's name wrong, and one of those ghost apps spoke up and said the correct one. But anyway, this, to me personally, this is the tree that I think it is. I'm going to flip back and forth between them. You notice there's three main trunks on that tree.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's twisted a little different, but then we've had 100 years of hurricanes and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
And look at its proximity to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I have actually got down on my hands and knees and dug down in the wall. That's not the original wall, but it was the foundation of the original wall. But that's a different tree than the one that is popularly thought it is thought to be. But
okay.
Again, and we went through our investigations, and you know, we would just put it out there to our tour group and say, what do y'all think? Here's the tree that is popular opinion that says it is. It's got all the posts around it. It's got the sign up. And there was another tree. Donnie, are you holding up your hand?
Well, I was going to say, when we went on that, you know, we kind of looked around at it, and it did the flashlight test on command, went on, went off. So it was kind of an eerie thing, you know, for that to happen.
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, the only way we can have positive proof is to get some ground penetrating radar in there.
Yes.
Find the actual grave. Come on, you know.
That's what I was going to recommend.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's just, which by the way, did you see in the background of this picture?
Mm-hmm.
What do you see in the sky?
A circle.
One of those sky cloud circles. Remember I posted a live thing the other night?
Oh.
Live. I took this picture myself, and what you see in the background there, that oblong oval shape, it's actually starting to break up, because when I noticed it, it was a lot clearer and a lot more empty. It was more of a hole in the clouds. But by the time I thought, oh my God, that's what that is, and let's take a picture of it, it was starting to dissipate. But anyway, I digress. We'll have to, I mean, I want to do more research into Boyington Oak, because like I said, that's the story that got me. For some reason, that one grabbed my attention, and I just fell in love with the story, and that's what I built my tour around. That was the big story and finale of my tour. We do an investigation there, you know, letting the crowd decide which tree was actually, you know, Boyington's oak. Because like I said, there are three viable contenders there, but the one that they say it is only has one main trunk, and there's another one there that only has two main trunks, and this is the only one that has three. So that's just me. And plus, like Donnie said, we did the flashlight experiment there just about every week. And, you know, people can say what they want about the flashlight experiment. You know, it's just amazing when you ask a question and something, and the flashlight comes on, you know. It happens. So, all right, we'll go on. The Richards DAR house.
Oh, yes.
That one, I remember, when I met the docent there, I don't remember her name, but they've got a nice crew of ladies, and their exact words, they have happy ghost. And, they don't have any of the weird, creepy, strange stuff like that just scare you and you want to get out. They just have fun stuff. And what was one of the things, Lewis, that you gleaned out of those stories?
I wrote about the DAR house so long ago that I don't really recall.
Okay. Well, the most famous story coming out of there is the marbles.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it was some friends of ours that were actually doing that. I know the man in the group that was actually investigating there. I wasn't there, but I mean, he told me about it, and then I started hearing about it everywhere else. He says, we left some marbles there, and told the spirits, the children, and said, if you will move these marbles for us, we'll leave them for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was immediately or they came back later, but it was the marbles had been moved. And so they left the marbles there. Now, a funny story, we joined them sometime later on an investigation there. And so in one of the bedrooms, I do a lot of that in my investigation. We got a lot of old school props that we use. I have a few of the electronic stuffs and the apps, but not a lot. I do a lot of the old school stuff. And I'd set up some of these marbles on a bed.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of those public ghost hunts, which honestly, I don't really dig those. I'd rather it be, 2 or 3 people. I don't like big crowd, big groups. That's just me. I don't like long EVP sessions. I like just 1 or 2 minutes, shut off the recorder. 1 or 2 minutes, shut off the recorder. That's just me, because I have sat up all night listening to recordings and it'll wear you out. But honestly, I've seen the sun come up, sitting there on the computer going, okay, and hitting start and stop and start. And so that gets old. Anyway, I'd set up the marbles on the bed, put a camera on it, a static video camera, and left the room. And first took a couple pictures of it to verify the basic pattern I had. Shoot. Came back a few minutes later, and the marbles were in disarray, total disarray. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happened again. It's happened again. And somebody walked over and said, oh, what do you mean? I said, the marbles, they're in different places. I said, I had them set up, like previously, that if they would move them, then whatever, we just want them to move them. And he was like, oh, I didn't know you were doing something there. I moved them around. I'm like, so we lost out on that opportunity. I want to show you, well, first off, I want to show you, this is what we're talking about, the Richards DAR house. But I had a unique experience there other than that. Let me find it. I've got a short video, which I know we're at an hour, folks, but we're having a good time here. But that was the Richards DAR house, and we may skip some of the stories because I know we're running over an hour now. But I was a speaker at a paranormal conference. It was called SpecterCon in downtown Mobile. I was one of the speakers. Met Christopher St. Booth, the paranormal filmmaker. We're still friends today. Great guy. He's got some great movies. You got to go see the Booth Brothers movies. They're on DVD and on I think Prime. But they're about the only ones I can stomach anymore as far as these ghost hunting shows. But they actually make movies and they do the research themselves, and they're good stuff. They've got a few fictional movies out there. But anyway, for this conference, I was being interviewed by a local reporter, and you'll see who it is in just a minute. But I want to point out something. When I did my tours, we use dowsing rods because they're cheap, inexpensive, easy to make. I built them all myself, and we'd pass them out on the tour and let people play with them during the tour. You know, we'd have our investigation times, and they would be sitting out there with their dowsing rods and just seeing, you know, if they get a response. And we got some good response. Well, I'm being interviewed by this guy, and those of you that are local will recognize him when you see him. But this is what made it to the TV, and I'll tell you what didn't get put on there right after this. Hold on.
Halloween is still 3 weeks away, but a Mobile paranormal group plans to haunt the port city this weekend. That's when Old South Paranormal will present SpectraCon 2014, its first ever paranormal convention.
Among the events offered during the convention will be a special ghost walk offered by Spirit Expeditions. Much like New Orleans, Mobile boasts an ample amount of haunted hangouts in our downtown area. Spirit Expeditions offers ghost tours in downtown Mobile every weekend. This Friday, they'll have one tailor-made for this weekend's event.
We provide dowsing rods where they can use those during the investigations. Sometimes we have digital recorders for doing EVP sessions and things like that. Some guests even bring their own equipment, you know, and so it's an interactive experience.
Tomorrow evening, Local 15's Darwin Singleton joins the members of the group as they preview Saturday's ghost hunt experience at one historic house in downtown Mobile. For a complete rundown of SpectraCon 2014 events and guest speakers, you can visit our website. Their website, we have a link at ours, local15tv.com.
Now, those of you that are local, you know who that was.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not local anymore.
no, but you know him. Why are y'all muted anyway?
Who was the guy with no beard? I remember him.
I don't know. But did you notice at one point we were on the front porch and he's standing there with the dowsing rods?
Mhm.
They cut the most unique spot. I mean, you saw he was holding them and they were spinning. Okay.
Mhm.
But here's what led up to that, what you didn't see. I was explaining to him, sitting there on the front porch, how the dowsing rods worked. And, you know, we tried a couple of questions. Nothing happened. We tried a couple more questions. Nothing happened. So then I was like, well, why don't we try to communicate with the children? They say there's a lot of children here. They've played with the marbles, you know. So I just made a general, hey, any of you kids that are listening and your children that are here with us, why don't you, you know, touch these dowsing rods and let Darwin know you're here. And that's when they begin to spin. And Darwin's eyes got as big as saucers. And he was like, oh my God, I'm not doing this. And he was freaked out. But like I said, they didn't leave that part in. So anyway, but that's what we saw there. And we had a lot of good times. And if you notice in that clip where they were going over some equipment, it was just a quick shot, but Mark over there with Old South Paranormal, he's the one that actually put out the marbles and had them moved, and that's the story that everybody remembers. Central Fire Station. It's right there. If you know downtown Mobile, it's right across the road from Moe's Barbecue, but that's the Central Fire Station right there. And do you remember that story, Lewis?
Yes. That was the story where they had some type of device that would have alarms on it that would ring and let them know where there was a fire. And they ended up having some lights on there that lit up, even though the device didn't have electricity.
Right.
And that was enough to make national news.
Yes, it did. I mean, this is the actual alarm board here.
Mm-hmm.
And you see there's a blue light on the top right and a red light further down.
Yes.
There's still no electricity connected to that board. There's still no electricity. but it has been
That's
known to
cool.
go off. It's been disconnected since the early 60s,
Yes.
but they have more than that there.
Okay.
They're a former fire chief that ran that station. When he retired and passed away, he's been seen there off and on through the years. So
Okay.
that's are you taking notes?
Yes, I am.
But he has been seen there off and on throughout the years. And then, of course, we can talk about Phoenix Fire. And my friend James Rossier Jr. has investigated there several times and had some unique stuff. But the Battle House Hotel,
Yes.
this is a unique place. You tell the story of the bride, correct? That her husband left?
Yes. There was a story that this couple had gotten married, and if I remember correctly, the husband left shortly after the wedding.
Right.
And when he didn't return for a while, the bride ended up killing herself in despair.
And there's a follow-up to that as well. Doggone, I should have looked it up. Where people can go into that room where the wedding was at today, and they'll see a woman standing there weeping. And when they go up to speak to her, she disappears.
Okay.
Now, there's more to it than that because, crap, I should have. Well, here's the thing. My computer with all my research from my tours died.
Ooh.
And we've got it in the hands of my brother-in-law, who is an expert with computers, to try to resurrect it. So y'all pray, keep your fingers crossed. I have tons of research on my computer. Anyway, but while we were on tour one night, we had a guest that turned out to be an engineer who worked for the city, and he confirmed one thing to us, which I didn't need confirmation, but still, it was kind of neat to have it. You know how it is, Louis, on tour when you're telling a story and somebody says, "Hey, yeah, I know about that."
Yes.
We talked about the tunnels underneath Mobile, and he was an engineer, and he's like, "Hey, I work down in these tunnels all the time." He said, "I'm down in the basements of these buildings." But he told us a story about the Battle House Hotel, and I wish Lynn, are you with us? There she is. Okay. Help me remember this. What? Oh, she's having issues.
Something that I think is interesting.
We can't hear you, baby.
My cousin. Why?
What? Okay, now we can hear you.
My cousin
Well, it keeps
was
cutting in
telling
and
me
out.
about it. Let me move somewhere. My cousin was telling me a story she had heard. Story, and the people in the story were related to my cousin. Found that out 2 months ago.
About Battle House?
Yeah.
Okay, what story?
The woman, the bride, and the guys that went in and beat her fiance up
Yeah.
were my cousin.
Oh, okay. You're still cutting in and out, but so the bride and groom were related to your cousins.
The bride and her brother that beat up the
Oh,
groom
you're
and killed him.
talking about the honor killings. Okay, so your cousins are related to the honor killing people, which that's a whole other episode, folks.
Yeah.
Whole other episode. Go look at the honor killings at the Battle House Hotel. That's some wild stuff. Anyway, this engineer was telling me that they were working on the second or third floor one night. Boy, Lynn, your computer's causing a lot of static and feedback. But he was telling me that they've got some safety windows that can only be opened with a key.
Mm-hmm.
so they were in there checking some things, and looked out the window, pushed the drapes back, and was looking around. And anyway, they came back a little while later, and those drapes that they had been moving were stuck in the window, flapping in the breeze outside, and the safety windows were still locked.
Jeez.
So,
Wow.
and he asked his partner, "Have you been back up here?" "No, I haven't been back up here." "Well, how did those drapes get stuck out the window?" "I don't know. I don't know." Anyway, there's so much more. Let's go on to Dagny. Your boss's grandfather owned.
I'll just summarize it real quick.
Okay.
I was looking at your page, Lewis, and I was going down, and it's funny that you guys keep mentioning that you have someone on the tour that knows something about it, and I came across Redmont Hotel, and that caught my attention. I was like, oh, my boss owns Redmont Hotel, and I was like, let me ask him. So I texted him and continued reading. And I just sent him a message saying, do you know anything about Redmont Hotel being haunted, basically? And he said, oh, let me tell you. He said his grandfather, Clifford Stiles, was the original owner of that place. And his brother's name is Clifford Stiles, named after his grandfather.
Okay.
And then he said that Hank Williams is known to show up at Redmont Hotel quite often. And he said that a lot of the housekeepers tell him that they will not go on the 13th floor alone. They don't want to, because of different ghost stories and things like that, things they hear. They have also heard the dog barking, and they've also heard his grandfather screaming. He said he was well known to yell all the time, and they don't like to go up there because his grandfather had that area, and he had a dog up there that lived with him. And he said that 3 or 4 days before Hank Williams died, he was putting on a show, and he stayed in his grandfather's hotel in Defuniak Springs.
Okay.
His grandfather owned multiple hotels. And in Defuniak Springs, Florida, his grandfather owned another hotel, and Hank Williams stayed there for the night. And he was so drunk that they called a doctor. They thought he was going to die.
Oh my God.
The doctor comes in, and the doctor gives him a shot of something and tells Hank Williams that night, he says, if you keep drinking like this, you're going to die within a year. Well, so that doctor's name was Dr. Evans. And 3 or 4 days later, Hank Williams stayed at the Redmont. Well, he died there in the Redmont those few days later. And that's the ghost that they definitely like to refer to as the ghost that's there. Well, my boss, Bruce Evans McAlpin, was named after the doctor that gave him that shot. And so not only does his grandfather was the owner, now he's the owner of Redmont. And he has housekeeping staff tell him all the time that his grandfather is up there yelling at them, barking at them alone. So I thought that'd be interesting to let you know about that.
Yes. Well, I before I started doing my LaGrange tour, I did a tour in Birmingham, and we would always stop right outside the Redmont, and we would have hotel staff come and try to shoo us away because they didn't want their hotel being on this tour. And of course, the name Clifford Stiles did come up, and I remember always saying that he was just a very particular person, and he insisted things be done in a very particular way, and that he would still return to make sure the housekeepers are still doing things that way. Now,
well, I work for his grandson, and I will say his grandson is particular.
Well,
My son's
I guess
perfect.
those things run in
My
the
son's
family.
perfect.
But
All right,
going
ahead.
back to your Hank Williams story, Hank Williams did not die in the Redmont, but he stayed there on the trip that he would die on. He died, I think, 2 days after he stayed at the Redmont. And the story in his biography, he was heading up to a performance New Year's Eve in Charleston, West Virginia. And he had a young man, Charles Carr, who was just a young college student, that he hired to drive him. And they left, I think it was Andalusia, Alabama, and headed up to Montgomery. He performed in Montgomery once in one or two places, and his spirit is supposed to return to that place. But then they headed up the next morning to Birmingham. They and he was being driven down the street, and they were initially going to stay at the Tutwiler, and which was at that time the best hotel in the city. And this young driver drove right past the Tutwiler, and when Hank Williams brought it up, the guy just decided to swing a Yui right in the middle of the street, which attracted the attention of a passing cop. And the cop came over and had him roll his window down. And what are you doing, boy? And the young man tried to explain what was happening. And eventually he said, well, you know, I have Hank Williams sitting in the back seat. The officer was totally unimpressed and basically said, you just need to keep on moving. So they drove on a little further and ended up deciding to check into the Redmont. And about 20 minutes after they had gotten into their room, there was a knock at the door, and Hank Williams went to answer the door, and there were three attractive young ladies standing there. And he looked at them and he said, where are y'all from? And one of them said, heaven. And he promptly invited all three of them into their room, and they spent the night with him. The next morning, Hank Williams headed out to Charleston, and he decided to stop in Knoxville at the Andrew Johnson Hotel, which is still standing. And they stayed at the Andrew Johnson for several hours. And during the course of that, Hank Williams contacted a doctor and had the doctor write him a prescription for a pain medication. And so he got that prescription filled, and then he decided to continue on his journey to West Virginia. And early the next morning, Charles Carr stopped the car in, I don't remember the name of the town, a very small town in West Virginia, and decided to check out to make sure Hank Williams was okay. He opened the back seat of the car door. He opened the back door, and Hank Williams was dead. And he died somewhere on that drive.
Wow.
And the story involves that he is supposed to also haunt the Andrew Johnson as well as the site where his car pulled over.
Yeah.
I have I ran the Hank Williams Songwriter Contest for 4 years in Georgiana, where he was born.
Yes.
That's where we met.
They said they finally found out that when he went to sleep in the back, he had died of carbon monoxide poisoning because the windows were up because it was so cold. And for years it was like, oh, he drank himself to death. He drank himself to death. Mm-hmm. But they finally found out it was carbon monoxide poisoning, and nobody, could have ever thought about that.
Wow. New info. That's where Donnie and I met. Was at the Hank Williams Festival in Georgiana. 2004, I think it was, because I was working on my CD. All right, real quickly, let's do one more hotel.
Well, actually, I have another story I can tell about the Redmont.
Oh, please do.
There was another event that happened at the Redmont sometime in the early 30s. One evening, the manager of the Redmont got a call from the manager of another hotel, and he said, there are two young men who have just robbed some of my guests, and I have a feeling they're probably going to another hotel, so you need to be on the lookout for these gentlemen. The manager had just seen two very strange-looking young men come into the lobby and get on the elevator. So the manager decided he needed to call the police. He called the police, and they went up, I think it was the 6th floor, and they found these two young men coming out of a guest's room. They had just robbed this guest, and the police, of course, tell these men to stop. They opened fire. The thieves opened fire on the police. The police, of course, fired back. The thieves were able to make their way down to the lobby of the hotel, and they actually had a shootout between the police and the thieves in the middle of the lobby on Halloween night.
Wow.
And one of both of the thieves were hit, and one of the detectives was injured, but the two young men made their way out the door. One of them dropped onto the sidewalk and died there. The other young man, who was just wounded, though covered with blood, made his way to the southern part of the city, where he was later arrested after somebody called the police because this young man is walking around covered with blood. And so I believe that there is possibly some spiritual remnants of that event taking place at the Redmont as well.
Yes, on Halloween night.
Yes, Halloween night. How appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Who recognizes this?
Malaga Inn.
Uh-huh. Here's another view.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
That picture was taken on tour one night, and I think, Christine, you were on that tour, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And we used it as a header for a while. When we started the tours, we went around the whole area, and any place like that that we were going to use as a location, we stopped in and talked to them, made sure it was okay. They told us point blank, no, we don't want to have anything to do with the paranormal. Now, granted, this was, after it's already been publicized. There's a YouTube video out there about the Malaga Inn, and, the different sightings, the woman in white, and, this kind of thing. But they said they didn't want to have anything to do with it. They felt like it gave them a bad reputation business-wise. So ironically, I agreed to it. Well, I say ironically, I agreed to it. And then ironically, the very first tour, we're down there and we cross the street because we don't want to, the sidewalk goes right in on their property. So out of respect, we would cross the street. And from the other side of the street, we would tell the stories. The first night we were there, this is where the ironically comes in, sorry. We're standing there telling it, and the front door of the hotel opens, and the owner walks out. And we're like, oh, crap. Here we go. He walks straight to us across the street. And before, in the middle of the street, he's like, hey, everybody, how y'all doing tonight? And he knows what we're there for. And he said, y'all come on in, take a look around. He invites, we had, Lynn, about 25, 30 people. We had a big group that night. And he invites a whole group in. We go into the courtyard. And so I'm talking to him, and I'm like, are you fine with this? Yeah. So anyway, I actually talked him into telling some of the ghost stories. So I didn't even have to tell the stories. The owner of the place told the stories, which, oh God, there's several there. Have you heard the one, Lewis, about the shaking chandelier?
I don't believe so.
Well, the man that owns it now, technically his mother owns it, and her older sister was the original owner that actually made it into Malaga Inn.
Okay.
And she occupied the room directly above the lobby where there's a giant chandelier in the lobby.
Yeah.
And they say that that when she's not happy with something going on in the hotel, she's been known to pace in her room so dramatically that it shakes the chandelier in the lobby.
Wow.
They say that still goes on today. Lynn and I stayed there, was it year before last? On our anniversary. We stayed the weekend. As a matter of fact, I'll show you. You can't see it, it's cut off. But on the second story, all the way on the left, there's a balcony, and that was the room we stayed in. Can't see it here either. It's the wrong angle. And here's the room 007. I took this picture myself when she and I were down there, where the lady in white has been spotted. There's an inside balcony in the inner courtyard, and the lady in white has been seen right in front of that room. We didn't see anything when we were there, though. but we had a cool time. All right, before we wrap this up, one of our last sponsors, one of our ETs is Tim Shepard out of Topeka, Kansas, and he has Raven Wind Tours. I hope everybody wrote that phone number down. If you're in Kansas, the state, not the band, make sure to check out Raven Wind Tours. I've mentioned this before to everybody, but Tim and I were tour guides with a now defunct national tour company, as well as Andrea that couldn't be here today because it's her dad's birthday. Wasn't that it, guys? She couldn't. She was. Everybody's thinking. I think that's what she said. I think she was watching. She may comment here in a second and get on to us, but I think that was it. And Beth is watching, looks like. But anyway, we met. We were all tour guides at a previous company. I ended up being their national training manager and a regional manager. But Tim and I both took our tours from out of that company, and mine. I mean, we both kept doing our tours, modified, of course, because it was now our own companies. But we evolved. Ours evolved into what it is today. He's doing Raven Wind Tours and having some great success. They start again, as you saw in the ad, June 20th. So if you're in the Kansas area, please check that out. Well, Lewis, before we call it a day, if someone wants to submit a story to you, do they just go to southernspiritguide.org or what's the process?
And just email me at southernspiritguide at southernspiritguide at gmail.com.
Okay, excellent. what are you? I mean, I know we're talking haunted ghost stories from the South, but is there anything specific that you're looking for, or something that you are not looking for? Is there a story that you wouldn't
Well,
tell?
I'm not as interested in private homes or
Right.
it's a story where you saw something at your grandmother's house, because those are not as easily researched as
Right.
public or semi-public locations. I prefer to really stick to those places where I can find a dearth of information rather than just a private home in some random town.
Yeah, makes sense. Something verifiable.
Yeah.
I mean, the grandmother's house stories are basically for the local paranormal teams.
Right.
But before we go, has anybody else got any questions for Lewis? I know I've kind of dominated this, but anyway,
I just want to say,
go ahead.
Dagny, Christine, it's a pleasure to finally get to see who you are.
Nice to see you too.
Lewis, it has been nothing short of an honor to sit here and soak in things that you've told us.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
And Lynn, go make supper.
Oh,
He's been dogging her all afternoon. Oh, actually, we have plans to go to Stoney's barbecue after this. So, guys, just calm down. Be jealous.
See y'all later. Thank you.
Go ahead and be jealous. All right.
You had your tours on.
I get you. About half of what you're saying is not heard. I'm sorry, baby.
What nights do you do tours?
Oh, I do my tours on Friday nights at 7 p.m. and they start out at the True County Historical Society and Legacy Museum on Main Street in downtown LaGrange, Georgia.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, baby.
Here in a few weeks to go to Toccoa.
Oh, that's right. That's right. She's taking a trip. She'll be going through there, so maybe she'll get to be on your tour.
I'd love to have you.
We'll set that up. Dagny, you did awesome.
Thanks, guys.
That was great.
It was good to meet you, Lewis.
It's nice to meet you.
I actually have a recording of my boss, audio recording that I can give you of him telling his story, which I remember now that him saying that Hank Williams was in progress to somewhere else.
Yes.
But I'll give you those audio files.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
And I'm going to let a cat out of a bag here because nobody knows it but the ETs, but Christine is working on her next book.
Congratulations.
thank you. Actually, I have a couple of them. As soon as I get a certain CD, I have my husband going to be editing one, my eldest daughter putting another one into the computer for my husband to edit, which she's been working on that for a while, and I'm working on 2, actually.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And, Tim Shepard, one of the Ravenwind Tours, is working on his second book and just made me an offer and that honored me. He asked me to be one of his proofreaders and editors. So I'm going to get to do that for his new book. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Did we put that in comments or is that just private chat? His tours are $20 a tour, if you $20 a person if you go through LaGrange. Yeah.
Yes. And we do have a website where we sell the tickets online. It's through Eventbrite. So just go to Eventbrite and look up Strange LaGrange.
Can you buy the tickets in person when you get to the tour, or is it reservations?
Well, at the moment, I think they're just going to require reservations because they're not letting anybody in the building because of the virus mess. But general tours, you can just show up and buy your tickets in person.
Yeah. All right. So it's eventbrite.com.
Yes.
Okay. And then search for Strange LaGrange.
Yes.
Okay. I'm putting that in the comment right now.
All right.
I should have made a banner of it. I didn't even think of it, but thank you, Lynn, for bringing that up. All right, guys, it's about that time. We've had an awesome show. We're going to close it out with our closing vid, and if I can find it, there it is. We're still learning, folks. We're still learning. But we're going to do our little closing outro, whatever, and then come back and say goodbye. All right, thanks everybody for watching and hanging with us. We went a little longer than normal today, but I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed having Louis here. You are awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was amazing.
Thank you for
Nice
having
to
me.
meet you.
It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet all of you.
We'll be looking for more from the ETs, and we'll be looking for more from Louis Powell with Southern Spirit Guide, and more stories coming up, I'm sure. Hey, we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Thank y'all for being here. Oh, and I think the next show is, are we doing Black Eyed Kids? Ooh, I think we're doing Black Eyed Kids next time, guys. So we'll be waiting for that one. It's going to be a wild one. See y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.